Tingles with flyby. Hello, my tinglings. Welcome to another top 10 video. Been having fun going through some top 10s with you. So today I'm going to be taking you through my top 10 TV shows of all time. And so obviously to get onto this list, I have to have seen it. For most of these, I've watched every episode that's come out. Some that are still ongoing, I haven't, because I tend to like to watch them in chunks, so if they've had some that come out, then I might not have. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the list. Number 10 is Dexter. This show, I had to stick at it a bit. Me and my love watched this together, and the first season, it's an intriguing show, but has some weak points in it. But I thought after the first season it gets really, really interesting and engaging. So if you don't know, the premise of it is that this guy is a serial killer, but he only kills kind of bad people or whatever. And you kind of find out how he's come to this point and all that. And like how he gets on in his life, and he works for a police department, so that helps him kind of suss out who his victims should be and that sort of thing. So it's a really fascinating show, quite intriguing to watch, and kind of, puts you into questions of morality and survivalism, and yeah, that brings up a lot of interesting topics. So I thought it was, very engaging to watch. It's not a show I'd necessarily ever watch again. Maybe potentially, but it was really good to watch one time. I've watched the whole series. I'm going to try not to give any spoilers in this video, unlike my movies video, which I had to give spoilers for. So, So I will not talk about the ending of Dexter. But yeah, it's an interesting show. I thought it was really well done. Also, he works as a blood spatter analyst, so he's kind of the science side of crime rather than being an actual cop. And so just like, even you get really limited exposure to that, but just to see some of the different methods that they use to reconstruct a crime seems quite interesting, so I liked it for that as well. So Dexter is my number 10. Is Seinfeld, and I think this is well established in many circles. I mean, I watched Seinfeld growing up, used to watch it all the time, and I'll probably still watch it many, many more times in my life. Great show. Just, it's hard to put your finger on, though, about what exactly it is that makes Seinfeld work so well. I mean, I think Kramer is a huge, really, really important, that kind of wacky character to, because by contrast, it makes the other ones seem normal, because otherwise, if it was just them, they would just seem really jerky and petty, but it's kind of, because Kramer's there is the kind of out there, not following any social rules, and them a little more restrained and abiding by social rules then makes them feel more normal and more relatable, as opposed to just, God, these guys are jerks. But I thought it was funny how they ended as well with that. But, yeah. So, it probably could have gone higher on my list, but it wouldn't make my top 5. I think that's reserved for the shows that I have. But I just mean, I really enjoy Seinfeld, but I don't think it's the greatest show ever. Not that I don't like, well, anyway, we'll see my number 1. But Seinfeld, number 9. Is Veronica Mars. I love this show. I haven't watched the movie yet. I need to do that. But I love this show so much. The 3rd season has a lot of the problems that you have with a high school show when they go to college. It is a bit hard to find a new rhythm, and I think that's probably why the show got canceled. Those first 2 seasons, though, she is so badass, and just, I love her character. She's just a great character, and I love watching her. She just takes it to anybody, does anything, but still is, you know, just as vulnerable. If she gets in a really scary situation, she's going to be screaming and crying and, you know, anything like that. So, very relatable character for me as a woman. And, yeah, I think she's an amazing character. And lots of good characters in that show, with Weevil and Logan as well. Duncan, not as much, but yeah, really engaging stories, and just really get you invested, very, very invested. So I've watched that twice. I just rewatched it, was binge watching it during my break. So good, so good. So Veronica Mars, my number 8. Is How to Get Away with Murder. This is a really good show. There are certain things that are very unrealistic about it. The dialogue is very snappy and quick, and most people don't actually talk that way. And, you know, that's not really how conversations go, but I still love it. I don't really care about that. I guess I only mentioned that because I think my dad brought that up when I was talking to him about it. But it's just really well crafted. It's planned from the beginning how it's going to end, at least from season to season, and lots of twists and turns, and so fascinating. And I love, I can't remember, see, I haven't watched it recently, so I don't remember what's the main characters. I can't remember the actress's name. I want to say Viola. But she's amazing. I love that character. She just very compelling character, and the actress, she did this amazing job. Again, badass. I like badass women, you know. And yeah, no, just very, very compelling. Highly recommend it to anybody who isn't watching it. You should get on that. So, How to Get Away with Murder. Get into it. Number 6. Is the IT crowd. I usually dislike British humor. I tried to watch the British version of The Office and I could not get into it at all. I actually did watch An Idiot Abroad, which is a Ricky Gervais kind of quasi-reality TV show. But, and I did enjoy that as well, but the IT crowd was on a list. It's like one of the most popular shows on IMDb, and so that's why me and my love started watching it. And the denim character is hilarious, and so then he left the show after the first series, that's what they call them in Britain, and I was like, oh, the show might go downhill from here. And then his son came in, the character's son, and he was even better. And it's just a hilarious show. I think it's the boss and Moss, those two make the show. The other characters obviously are important as well, but just quirky and different that really drive things home. My favorite episode is, I think it's called Moss and the German. Good episode. I've watched that, I think, 6 or 7 times, a lot of times. So, really good. So, highly recommend it. Watch it. It's hilarious. There's some really, really good stuff in there. And yeah, a little bit of kind of nerdy humor. So if you are techie at all, it's, yeah, God stuff. It's really good. So yeah, highly recommend. IT crowd. I will actually say one thing. So one of the things that they have, so they work in IT. So they're like the, help desk support and that sort of thing for the company, Random Industries. And they actually have it set up to play a tape when the phone rings, which says, "Hi, have you tried turning it on and off again?" And it's really, really funny. If you've ever worked in a help desk, it's so important to ask that question because that is the first troubleshooting step. And so often, even if you work in a help desk, you may forget to. So I've done that before where, while I was still working as a customer service rep, and I power cycled and it fixed everything, so I felt silly. But anyway, can happen to anybody. And yeah, but always try turning it off and on again. Fixes 80% of problems, I would say. So anyway, it was really funny to have it on the tape. If you watch the first episode, you'll get into that. But there's so many good things along the way. So IT crowd, my number is 6. is Scandal. I love Scandal. Olivia Pope is an amazing character. Her father is also a really, really interesting character. There's a lot of intrigue in this show. She's having an affair with the president in the beginning, so that's very interesting. And she also works as a political fixer in Washington, so deals with fixing a lot of problems that come up for people, and so you get exposed to all sorts of things that might come up and things that people might be hiding and all this sort of stuff, and the ways they get around things and who they have to pay off and how the payoffs happen. And it's actually really, really interesting in that way. And then there's just kind of there's lots of unrealistic intrigue as well, which is very, very interesting as well, and I just love it. Yeah, I'm really into it, and yeah, it's good. So, definitely recommend it, and that's why Scandal is my number 5. Number 4 is Arrested Development. This to me is just a very, very good show. The characters and the way they combine. I love the characters, pretty much every one of them. Buster not as much, but pretty much every one of the characters I love as a character, even though most of them I would hate in real life, because a lot of them are very, very annoying. But just to see their follies and see how they all interact, and I don't know, it's just, and I mean the comedy is great, it's hilarious. The dad is hilarious because he's in jail. One of my favorite lines is, it's like, Dad, so his son is coming in, Michael, who's kind of the main character. He's coming to see him in jail, and he's like, Dad, you're doing time. He's like, I am doing the time of my life. And they're just, like, that's one moment, but there are just so many moments like that that are just great lines, but are great kind of transcending the show that would be great without the show. And it's kind of an excuse to use those lines. So there's a lot of that, but then also, like, there's some weak points in the last season before the Netflix season. Very weak points, but yeah, it's just great. Nothing to say other than that. It's just great. So, that's why Arrested Development is my number 4. Number 3 is Sons of Anarchy. This show is very gritty and deep, but a little, I mean, it's a big glamorizing of violence, a little bit as well, but very intriguing look at bike gangs, so looking at white gangs in the US rather than black gangs, and just kind of getting a perspective there, and just, yeah, the different values, because you can actually see that come through in the show, is that underpinning everything is a set of values and something that they do value, and there's something that they do stand for and that's important to them. And so then it's understanding, it's different than my values, for sure. But it's interesting to see how that morality system works for them, how that manifests in the different places they end up going. And, Jax is just a very compelling character. He's the main character, he's very compelling. His mom, Gemma, very, very, very compelling character. I hate her sometimes I don't, but a very, very compelling character. And so watching their interactions, but then also the others of the gang and how they all vote, how his mom has an influence, but she's a woman, so she can't be in. Just seeing that all play out, very, very interesting. So, I've watched the whole show, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It was compelling viewing. And, good to watch. So that's why Sons of Anarchy is my number 3.
Number 2
is Stranger Things. I haven't even watched the 2nd season yet. I will admit that. I need to get into it soon. It's been a bit crazy, which is why I haven't gotten into it. But just based on the 10 episodes that I've seen, puts it very, very close to one of the favorite shows that I've ever seen. It's just such a high quality production. To me, it's almost like a really long movie. That's how high quality it is. I know Game of Thrones, it's kind of that Game of Thrones model, but to me more compelling than Game of Thrones. Just really jives with me. The sci-fi aspect I really like. That's very compelling for me. And the mother with her lost son, that's, just something that tugs at my heartstrings and gets me really, really invested. And so, yeah, very, very compelling show. Great to watch. Very atmospheric, really puts you back into that time in the 80s where it takes place. And, just a really great show. And those kids are just amazing. Great characters, great kids. So, Stranger Things couldn't not take place on this list, and I think it really deserves its spot at number 2. I have 3 honorable mentions for this list. It was actually really hard determining the order for this list, so kind of below 5, probably the order could be shifted around and these honorable mentions could be put in the list and some moved out. The one dead set, I'll start with the honorable mention that I don't think would make it into my top 10 list, is Ugly Betty. Actually, probably only one would make it into my top 10 list. Ugly Betty, really, really like that show. So much style in the show, and it took me forever to actually start watching the show. My sister was like, Ugly Betty is such a good show, you should watch it. and I hated the name. I really don't like the word ugly. I don't really believe in ugly. I believe in ugly personalities, but not really in ugly physical beauty, because I just think, I don't know, I think everybody has their strong and weak traits, and I don't know, I just don't think there's a physical aspect that makes somebody ugly. Personality traits can be very ugly, very messy, but I don't know, I just don't see ugliness in physical bodies. Anyway, so I don't like the word ugly, so that's why I was like, oh, ugly Betty, I don't know about that. So after long resistance, I finally got into it. I really enjoyed it. The one thing that I can't vouch for on that is I watched this a long time before I kind of had done more research into transgender issues and that sort of thing. And they do have a character who is trans in there, and I'm not sure it's handled the most sensitively, so that's kind of a tick mark against it. And especially if that is something, you know, that's relevant for you, then you may want to give it a miss. Because I mean, I can't say for sure, because I do think they do that typical, like, kind of like, oh, you know, I didn't know they were trans type thing. But anyway. So, yeah, anyway, Ugly Betty. What I love is there's these two really gossipy characters who in the beginning you just hate, who are horrible to Betty, but in the end they become friends, and she becomes roommates with them, one of them. And I've had that experience before of like just having such an impression of somebody and they're really kind of dicky as well, but when you get to know them better, it's like complete opposite. So I really liked that because they really gave depth to those characters who seemed so shallow at first. So that's a really good aspect of Ugly Betty. I do really like that. My second, that also wouldn't make my top 10 list, is How I Met Your Mother. I really enjoyed that show, watched them all, and I never really had a hard time like, oh, do I want to keep going with this show? Really compelling, really good to watch. Hate the ending. I didn't say that, but anyway, hate the ending. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of a good standard show. Pretty good. The third show for my honorable mentions is The Office. That's a really well done show. The U.S. Office, the one I'm talking about. Steve Carell, Jim and Pam and Roy and Stanley, Angela, Dwight. I mean, all these characters are just really well done. They just seem exactly like their characters. Grumpy, friendly, insecure, you know, whatever it is. So just really sell it really well. It's funny. A little risque probably in the beginning, but it tones it down after the first season. I mean, as far as like kind of joking about things that you probably shouldn't joke about on a TV show like that. But, oh, I'm getting tired. Anyway, so, Office, that's my last honorable mention. And I usually try and drum roll into number one, but it usually fails. So, no drum roll, just, those are my honorable mentions. Is Supernatural. This is a very flyby choice. It's me. It's my choice. I can see lots of problems in Supernatural. It's got some issues with writing, really, plot holes at different points, particularly within episodes. Not usually as much in the larger narrative, but some really obvious plot holes that lead things forward. I'm just like, these guys are so good at what they do, and then they just did that. That makes no sense. But their relationship is just so compelling. And, you know, they're fighting good and evil, and it's just... But to see, like, the different trials that they go through, how things morph, but just the brotherhood. It's all about the brotherhood. I love the brotherhood. I'm addicted to the brotherhood, and yeah, to me, it's just a great show. Just a great show. And it's just such a connecting show. Like, it's the only show I've ever watched where I'm like, oh, I definitely want to go to a convention. So, I may eventually go to a Supernatural convention. I'll let you know if I do. Especially if I meet Jensen Ackles or Jared Padalecki. I mean, everyone really only cares about Jensen, right? That's who plays Dean, if you don't know. It's Team Sam and Team Dean, but pretty much everyone I know is Team Dean. I'm Team Dean. But you don't have the brotherhood without Sam as well, so you gotta have both of them. And you do have both of them in the show. Ooh, anyway, Supernatural, it's a great show. It's not for everybody, but it's for me, and that's why it's my number one. I love it. So, that's my top 10 list. It's my top 10 list. Let me know what yours is down in the comments, or at least what your favorite TV show of all time is. And I will see you next time. Goodbye, my tinglings. Thanks for watching this video.